It's the voice of reasonable, fair-minded people who get it, who get how you make a dollar and how you should spend a dollar. And one thing I know, growing up in Iowa, we as a family never spent more money than what we took in. That's called Econ 101. I think that that's some tough love that maybe we should use for those who are running Washington, D.C. What do you think? Yeah. I think so too. I am so pleased to be a part of the Tea Party movement. I love the Tea Party because people, especially liberals, have a very false notion of who the Tea Party is. They want you to think that the Tea Party is made up of toothless hillbillies coming down out of the hills wearing red, white, and blue. But the fact is, they should be afraid of the Tea Party. Because the Tea Party is made up of disaffected Democrats, independents, libertarians, people who have never been political a day in their life, Republicans, conservatives. It's made up of a huge swath of America that's come together in a common sense voice and have said, no new taxes. In fact, I think it's actually easy to understand why President Obama has had a lot of trouble creating jobs and turning the economy around. There was an interview that was given on Thursday night by the man that President Obama put in charge of turning the economy around. He is our current Treasury Secretary. His name is Tim Geithner. And did I hear you say TurboTax, Tim Geithner? Is that what I heard you say? Be nice. Iowans are known for being nice. But in this interview, the Treasury Secretary was asked what was he going to do after he'd left his office being Treasury Secretary. And I want to quote this so that we get it right. He said, "I've never had a real job." Does that tell you something? I've only worked in public service. I live for this work. This is where they're coming from. Don't you wish that at least he would have started a lemonade stand? That's what we did when I was growing up in Waterloo and Cedar Falls as kids. We had lemonade stands. One thing that we knew is that we had to bring in more money than what we put out. This is not a terribly difficult concept, except for politicians. And that's why we love the Tea Party, because the Tea Party gets it. It's not a political party, it's an idea. And it's an idea that has captured the hearts and minds of the American people. And it's lit a flame all across the United States. So much so that I know without a shadow of a doubt, in 2012, Barack Obama will be a one-term president. And I want you to know, as President of the United States, I look forward to creating real jobs for both the Treasury Secretary and the President of the United States. In fact, I think the President has kind of predicted this, where we're at today, because in his first year in office, the President gave an interview in February of 2009, and he said this. He said, if I fail to turn the economy around within 3 years, I think we will have a one-term precedent. I say, Mr. President, we're going to hold you to your word. You know, I was at the White House just a few weeks ago. I was in a meeting with the President of the United States. And in that meeting, we asked the President, not once, not twice, but 3 times, Mr. President, what is your plan for saving Medicare? The president didn't have a plan for saving Medicare other than he mumbled something about Obamacare. This is something that all of you should know. I think in all likelihood, the president will be content to see Medicare continue to go down the road that it's going, which is currently not sustainable. It might go broke, and at that point, the president's plan for senior citizens will be Obamacare. Now let me ask you, how many of you in this office want your plan, I don't care how old you are, to be Obamacare? Not me. I was the first representative in the House of Representatives to get down to the floor and introduce the full-scale repeal of Obamacare. To you today here in Des Moines, Iowa, as President of the United States, I will not quit until we actually have a full-scale repeal of Obamacare. You can take that check to the bank, you can cash it all the way. I will not stop until we repeal it. That's President Obama's signature issue that he has passed in his presidency, and in 2012 he has to answer to the American people. The Congressional Budget Office said that Obamacare will cost this nation 800,000 jobs. Well, that's adding insult to injury, because President Obama has cost this economy millions of jobs. So who, with all due respect, in their right mind, would propose a massive government takeover if it meant another 800,000 jobs lost? You'd only do that if you'd never run a lemonade stand. And as a matter of fact, the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said, his name is Admiral Mike Mullen. Admiral Mullen said that the greatest threat to America's national security is our national debt. Now, just think with me for a moment. Don't you think if you are the commander-in-chief and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said to you, Mr. President, the greatest threat to America's national security is our national debt, don't you think the president as commander-in-chief would listen? Under normal circumstances, you would think that he would, but instead, what's the president proposing right now in July? He's proposing more spending. That's right. I knew there was an Iowan over here. Not only that, he's proposing more borrowing. We're supposed to go into debt $2.4 trillion more dollars. Now let's think about this again. In 10 years, we've raised the debt ceiling 10 times. What's going to happen if we raise the debt ceiling and spend $2.4 trillion more than what we have next year? We're going to be right back off it where we were before, only a little bit deeper in debt, only a lot more deeper in debt. We are now at the point where we draw the line in the sand. As a member of Congress, every time that vote came up, I voted no on raising the debt ceiling. And it is time to say no again on raising the debt ceiling, because all of this overspending has led, in just the time that Barack Obama has been president, if you hold up a dollar bill, that dollar under Barack Obama lost 14% of its value. Are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? No. Is the dollar stronger than it was 2 years ago? America needs a strong dollar. I will stand for a strong dollar in the United States of America. And by the way, it is time to audit the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has a very that means that inflation goes up, the value of currency goes down. Is this working for you? No. Absolutely not. Pull out that dollar bill again. When you look at that dollar, 42 cents, or almost, if you fold that dollar in half, 42 cents of every dollar your government spends is borrowed. Now think about that. How long could you live like that? I couldn't live like that more than a couple months. I couldn't spend money where 42 cents is borrowed. You can't live that way. I can't live that way. The federal government can't live that way. And as President of the United States, we won't live that way anymore. Because under President Obama, he has increased, when you think of 200, it will soon be 235 years of American history, and thank God for Independence Day. In just a little over 2 years that Barack Obama has been president, he has increased that 235 years of debt by 35% in just over 2 years. Do you realize how close to the edge we are as a country? But we are forward-looking people. We love the next generation. And I am here to tell you, I am unwilling to saddle my children and your neighbor's children with debt that we can't possibly pay back. We will not do that. That's immoral to the next generation. We will not steal from our children any longer. Washington, D.C. during the financial meltdown. I was there behind closed doors when Hank Paulson came over to the Congress and said it was financial Armageddon if we didn't give him, for the first time in the history of this country, a $700 billion blank check that he could spend any way he wanted to bail out the people on Wall Street who it was good enough to go ahead and roll the dice and pull all the profits in. But when they turned up snake eyes, and when they rolled the dice and they had losses, then all of a sudden, we were good enough to pay for their losses. My answer to that was, no dice, Charlie. You roll the dice, you lose, you pay for your own losses. That's not our problem. Look, I have nothing against somebody trying to make an honest buck. I have nothing against Wall Street. But what I do have something against is when private industry decides that they can do what they want and stick us with the bill. As President of the United States, I will send a letter out to let private industry know whether it's unionized or non-unionized, whether it's a public or a nonprofit. I will tell them, if you get yourself to the point of bankruptcy, I'll be sorry, but I won't be bailing you out with the American people's money. That's why I confronted our Treasury Secretary behind closed doors and said to him, where is your evidence? Show me what it is. They could not show us evidence, and so I didn't give him my vote for the $700 billion bailout either. Nor did I vote for the $1 trillion stimulus. Nor did I vote for Barack Obama's 9,000 earmarks. Those days are done. Can you hear us in Washington, D.C.? Those days are done. We cannot continue to have 4 more years of an unconstitutional health care plan. We cannot afford it. We can't afford 4 more years of millions of jobs that are lost. We can't afford 4 more years of our housing values being devalued rather than increasing. We can't afford 4 more years of a president who's not leading in this nation or leading abroad. We can't afford 4 more years of a president who had, in his own words, said when it came to foreign policy, He was going to lead from behind. When is the last time you heard an American president say he's going to lead from behind?
Never.
As President of the United States, I'll guarantee you one thing. I will lead from the front. I will not lead from behind. Because the United States of America is the head. We are not the tail. Nor will we be the tail. Nor will I ever apologize for the United States around the world. That will not happen. And I will never do what the President of the United States did to our ally in May. I will never say to Israel, you must pull back your boundaries to the 1967 indefensible because I am here to declare to you today in Des Moines, Iowa, I stand with Israel. And I will stand against America's enemies. It's time that we do that we stand. We are living in a great time. We are living in a great day. The solutions to America's problems actually, like the old song says, aren't that difficult if you try. It really isn't that tough. All we have to do is take the reasonable, fair-minded, common-sense voices, again, that I learned from people that I loved and people who loved me here in Iowa. That voice I've been able to successfully take to Congress. And the politicians started waking up in the halls of Congress. They know you're here. They're listening to you. They're paying attention to you. And my goal is to take the reasonable, fair-minded voice of Iowa not only to the halls of Congress, but now to the White House, where it's been missing for far too long. By just briefly telling you about the Sullivan brothers in Waterloo, Iowa. How many of you are familiar with the Sullivan brothers? I remember my father telling my three brothers and I, by the way, that's the best preparation for politics any girl can ever have 3 brothers and no sisters. My father told my brothers and I the story of the Sullivan brothers, and he was extremely proud. My father served our nation honorably in the U.S. Air Force. My stepdad served in the United States Army. My stepbrother retired, full U.S. Navy. And don't ever forget, not one of us would be here today for this gathering celebrating Independence Day if it wasn't for our veterans. We stand for our military. I am privileged to sit on the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. We're a very small committee. Every day we are faced with the task of dealing with the nation's classified secrets. And so on a regular basis, I see the threats to not only America within our borders, but also the threats coming from outside of our borders as well. This is a very sobering time, and we need a president who appreciates how sobering these threats are to our nation. With the Sullivan brothers, there was also a threat during World War II. And we know that we were viciously attacked at Pearl Harbor. Well, the Sullivans had a neighbor, and the Sullivan's neighbor was killed at Pearl Harbor. And so the 5 Sullivan brothers decided to sign up only on one condition, that they could serve together on the same ship. They were allowed to do that. They served together. And one of the brothers infamously wrote, "We will make a team together that can't be beat," because they stuck together. I don't know about you, but when we were little kids, my mom would say to my brothers and I, "Now you kids be sure, when you go out into that neighborhood, you stick together. You stick up for each other when you get out into the neighborhood." And we did. We'd fight like cats and dogs in the house, but when we went outside, it was all for one and one for all. And we stuck together. The Sullivans did that as well. And the Sullivan brothers were out, and one terrible night, there was a night of intense battle. They were on the USS Juno, and that morning a Japanese tornado fired and hit the ship. And of 697 brave soldiers, only 10 survived, none of whom were the Sullivan brothers. And the nation mourned. And the Sullivan parents, in the midst of their intense pain and grief, got up and went across the country and gave speeches and encouraged millions of Americans to support the effort against the enemy so that we would prevail. And America did prevail because we stuck together as a nation. And once again, Iowa leads the nation. You will make that decision again of who our president will be. And I believe that if, as disaffected Democrats, independents, libertarians, people who aren't even political, Republicans, conservatives, Tea Partiers, if we come together in this coalition, if we stick together, then we will be a team that can't be beat. And once again, Iowa will lead the way and set the example for the rest of the United States. And then together, we will secure the promise for the future. Because it is my absolute conviction that together we can, and together we will take this country back in 2012. Together we can!